4:17 a.m. The Strait of Hormuz, one of the most tense waterways on Earth. On the surface, though, it looks almost peaceful. A U.S. Navy Arleigh Burke-class destroyer moves through the smooth black water at 18 knots. Radar shows nothing unusual. Sonar stays quiet. The crew is focused but calm. Commercial tankers follow their normal routes. Above them, sharp stars stretch across a moonless sky. Everything appears exactly as it should, and that is when the situation becomes most serious in any military scenario. The moment when everything seems perfectly normal. Because somewhere beyond view, hidden in the darkness, 3 F-14 Tomcats are already in the air. 2 Kilo-class submarines are already resting below, engines silent, waiting. And a recorded distress call is about to come alive on Channel 16, the one frequency every ship in the world is required to monitor. The setup is already in place. The only thing left is for the target to arrive. At 4:17 a.m., the destroyer is just 11 minutes away from moving directly into it. 4:28 a.m. The radio suddenly crackles. Mayday, mayday, fishing vessel in danger, crew in the water. The voice sounds broken, panicked, desperate. The message repeats, cuts out, then returns in fragments. It takes about 4 seconds for the decision to happen. Maritime law, naval doctrine, and basic human instinct all lead to the same response. You go. Every time. No hesitation, no delay, no second guessing. Engines push to flank speed. The ship turns hard. A new course is set for the distress coordinates. 14 minutes out. But the fishing vessel is not real. The distress call is a recording, playing on a loop from an unmanned drone already sinking itself into the depths. And the coordinates do not mark a rescue point. They mark a carefully chosen engagement zone, surveyed in advance and mapped with precision. The location is selected for one reason. It forces any ship responding to approach with its bow angled away from the Iranian coast, leaving both sides exposed to 3 separate lines of approach at the same time. Every part of the next 26 minutes has already been prepared. The destroyer is the only one that has no idea what role it is about to play. 4:39 a.m. The first sign that something is wrong. Radar begins picking up irregular contacts, fast and inconsistent. They appear for a moment at bearing 270, around 40 miles out, then disappear before a full track can be built. Then the electronic warfare suite catches something even more troubling. A pulse lasting just 0.4 seconds. Not from a search radar, from a targeting radar. Something out there has just taken a brief, careful look at the destroyer and chosen not to act just yet. The pulse vanishes before a full analysis can be completed, but its pattern, frequency, duration, and directional signature all point to one thing: an AWG-71, the radar mounted in the nose of an F-14 Tomcat. 4 seconds later, all 3 activate at once. At 4:43 a.m., the ambush begins. 3 high-speed contacts appear from 3 different sectors: north, northwest, and west, showing up on radar almost as if they had been holding perfectly still below detection range, waiting for this exact second to move. More than Mach 1.5, closing fast from every direction. At the same moment, the electronic warfare suite stops issuing warnings and starts howling. Full-power AWG-71 pulse Doppler emissions from multiple sources cut through every available countermeasure. Then come the tones. 3 missile lock alerts at the same time, layered over one another in every headset across the ship, creating a sound no amount of training ever truly makes normal. 3 aircraft, 3 target locks, missiles already inbound. Chaff is deployed. The ship turns hard. Phalanx C-IWS comes online and begins tracking. This is the final shield, the last line of protection when every earlier layer has already failed. It intercepts the first incoming missile at 2 miles. It takes down the second at less than a mile. It locks onto the third with a clean firing solution, barrel aligned. Then the destroyer's evasive maneuver shifts the geometry by 4 critical degrees, and the missile slips through the gap. CIWS engaging. Still tracking. Still tracking. Then half a second of silence. Not the silence of calm, but the silence inside a combat information center full of people staring at a screen that is showing them something they can no longer prevent. Still tracking. Brace. The impact changes the physical reality of every compartment on the ship in roughly 1/15 of a second. The warhead detonates above the waterline. A pressure wave punches through every bulkhead at once. Fluorescent lights burst. Watertight doors are torn from their mountings. The fireball can be seen from 30 miles away in every direction. At the point of impact, 3 crew members lose their lives instantly, and 11 more are injured. The ship's primary defensive computing system flickers, reboots and cycles, struggling to come back online while the battle keeps moving without it. Fire, flooding, failing systems, and the engagement is far from over. In many ways, it is only beginning. 4:48 a.m. sonar. This is where the ambush reveals its second layer, the part built specifically to take advantage of the chaos created by the first strike. While every sensor and defensive system on a damaged, burning destroyer is focused upward on the aircraft threat, 2 Kilo-class submarines, sitting silent along the thermocline, launch. NATO analysts call the Kilo the black hole, and not as a compliment. It earned that name because at low speed on electric motors, it produces less acoustic noise than the ocean around it. These 2 submarines had been in position beneath the destroyer's patrol route hours before the Mayday call ever came through. They listened to the entire approach. They waited for the blast. Then they fired. The torpedo alert does not arrive as a slow realization. It comes as an emergency. 2 fast screw signatures are already inside 6,000 yards, closing at 45 knots, terminal seekers locked onto the loudest contact in the water. From below, a damaged destroyer pushing its engines hard is impossible to miss. The weapons are not guessing, they are not searching, they are already in the final phase. 6,000 yards. The calculation is immediate and unforgiving. At torpedo speed, that distance means less than 4 minutes. On a damaged ship with degraded systems, fires in the aft section, and aircraft still potentially overhead, 4 minutes is almost nothing. Countermeasures go out. The ship turns hard. The helicopter lifts off from the burning aft deck in under 3 minutes. Remarkable in any situation, nearly unbelievable in this one. And drops sonar into the water, hunting for the submarines. One torpedo locks onto a decoy and veers away. The second does not. Its seeker has a clean solution. The destroyer cannot generate enough speed or enough turning room to break the geometry. The track remains steady. The firing solution is complete. No defensive option remains. Impact in 3, impact in 2, impact in 1. And then the blast comes from 800 feet above the surface. 2 AIM-120 AMRAAMs detonate in less than a second, each one tearing apart an F-14 so completely that the radar tracks simply disappear. No debris trail, no secondary flash, just 2 contacts becoming nothing. At the exact same moment, a massive directed electronic warfare burst slams into every active sensor across the engagement zone at once. The torpedo loses its guidance link. Its terminal seeker, suddenly unable to separate the target from the wall of interference, drifts off course, holds its last heading for 4 more seconds, and slices past the destroyer's bow. The third F-14 sees both wingmen disappear in less than 2 seconds and immediately turns for Iranian airspace at full afterburner. It does not look back. Above the entire ambush zone, 2 F-35 Joint Strike Fighters had already been there the whole time, holding altitude in total emission silence since before the Mayday signal was ever transmitted. They were not launched in reaction. They had been placed there in advance, based on intelligence that recognized the structure of the trap before it was activated, and made a deliberate choice to let it unfold. Let every Iranian asset commit fully, reveal its position completely, and then bring the entire operation down at the moment when it would have the greatest effect. Every Iranian platform involved in the ambush, the aircraft, the submarines, even the drone broadcasting the false distress call, had been under watch from the moment it moved. The intervention came at the final survivable second. Deliberate, exact, clinical. The remaining submarine now being hunted by the helicopter and a P-8 Poseidon that had also been quietly holding station nearby fails to make it to deep water. By 5:09 a.m., it is no longer part of the fight. The wreckage of 2 F-14S burns on the surface. The Strait that had been silent at 4:17 a.m. is now, at the same time, an investigation site and an active battlefield. At 5:47 a.m., 6 Tomahawk cruise missiles rise out of the forward VLS cells. Their targeting data had been assembled by the F-35s during the engagement itself. Sensor tracks were traced backward along the F-14's inbound routes to their launch point, a dispersed coastal airbase on the Iranian shoreline, part underground, part concealed, the kind of facility that exists on only the shortest and most restricted lists. The Tomahawks stay low for 41 minutes. At 6:28 a.m., the runway is put out of action, the hardened shelters give way, and the fuel depot triggers a secondary blast that burns for 6 hours and appears on commercial satellite imagery by the time the sun is fully up. The base that launched the ambush is no longer usable as a military site. By 5:47 a.m., the Strait of Hormuz is quiet again. But to understand what really happened, you have to widen the frame, because this encounter did not emerge out of nowhere. It came at the peak of a pressure curve that had been building for months. Tanker seizures, drone interceptions, proxy strikes across the region, back-channel warnings delivered, then ignored. For most of the year, the Strait of Hormuz had been tightening like a spring. Each incident seemed designed to test one question: how far could American restraint be pushed before it finally gave way? This ambush was not improvised, it was prepared. It was the breaking point. The pressure that had been building for months finally gave way. Within hours of the clash, the wider standoff between the United States and Iran shifts into a zone that neither side can easily step away from. A second carrier strike group moved into the North Arabian Sea 48 hours earlier. Now looks far less like a routine rotation and far more like a deliberate move made in anticipation of what was coming. Combat air patrols over the Strait are doubled. Every Iranian naval vessel in the Persian Gulf is now under continuous watch, not occasional tracking. The rules of engagement also begin to change quietly. Assets that had previously been cleared only to observe are now cleared to intervene. Iran answers immediately and in layers. The IRGC Navy pushes fast attack craft into the lower Gulf in formations not seen since the tanker war period of the 1980s. Coastal defense missile batteries are placed on heightened alert across roughly 400 kilometers of shoreline. Iranian state media releases carefully crafted statements, neither openly claiming the ambush nor rejecting responsibility, staying on a narrow line meant to project strength at home while preserving deniability abroad. In Tehran, the central question becomes how to interpret the American response. It was sharp, fast, and highly damaging, but what did it mean? Was it the start of something larger, or was it meant to settle the score and stop there? That answer is not easy to read. The Tomahawk strike on the airbase was precise and tightly limited. It did not hit civilian areas, it did not go after command centers, it struck exactly what had launched the attack and nothing beyond that. That kind of restraint can be read in two completely different ways. It can be seen as the upper limit of the response or as the opening move, and the gap between those two interpretations changes everything. In Washington, the same uncertainty appears from the opposite direction. Intelligence teams are already dissecting the structure of the ambush step by step. The submarine positioning alone would have required weeks of planning, which means the operation was almost certainly approved at the top levels of Iranian military command long before it was carried out. That approval chain is now under intense focus. The question being asked in every room that matters is no longer whether there should be another response. The question is how far upward that response should go. At the same time, Allied governments are being briefed behind closed doors. London, Riyadh, Tel Aviv, Doha. Each receives its own version of the same intelligence package. Each draws its own conclusions about what the American response means and what it does not promise going forward. Some see it as a clear display of resolve. Others see it as the first move in a chain of events with no obvious endpoint. No one says that out loud, but in the hours after 6:30 a.m., private discussions in those capitals begin to reshape the diplomatic balance of the region for months, and possibly for years. Alliances rarely fracture in public. More often, they shift quietly, one reassessment at a time, each one set in motion by a single night of combat in a strait only 21 miles wide. At the same time, global oil markets open to reports of a military clash in the Strait of Hormuz and respond instantly to the most severe scenario. Crude prices surge. Shipping insurance rates for Persian Gulf routes double overnight. 3 major tanker operators decide to reroute around the Cape of Good Hope instead of crossing the strait, adding 2 weeks to delivery schedules and driving up fuel costs by hundreds of thousands of dollars per voyage. That is the reach of the Strait of Hormuz. That is exactly why it was chosen. This was never truly about rescue. It was a test, a way to measure how far the American instinct to respond could be drawn into a carefully prepared kill zone. A way to see whether the system of American military power, once caught off guard, damaged and pushed to its outer edge, would stay intact or begin to fail. Now both sides have their answer, and somewhere inside a sealed room with no windows and no official record, someone is almost certainly already sketching out the next version of the trap, refining what worked, removing what did not, recalculating the narrow margins that separated a lost destroyer from a near disaster. By 6:30 a.m., the strait is quiet again. But in that part of the world, quiet has never meant safe. It has only ever meant, not yet.